When people talk about stimulants, they usually frame the conversation in crude terms: more energy, more drive, more output.
But that's a dangerously simplistic way of thinking, because what actually matters isn't raw energy, it's the quality of consciousness that energy produces. Yerba Mate is interesting precisely because it doesn't just push the nervous system harder. It seems to organize it. Instead of the sharp spike and crash you get from coffee, Mate produces a steadier form of alertness. One that sharpens attention without hijacking emotional regulation. And that distinction matters far more than we tend to admit.
Think about what most people are actually struggling with. It's not a lack of stimulation, it's fragmentation. Attention scattered. Emotions oscillating between anxiety and exhaustion. Coffee often amplifies that problem: heightened vigilance paired with inner chaos.
Yerba Mate, by contrast, appears to promote what you might call calm competence. You're awake, engaged, mentally present, but not driven into that brittle, overamped state where everything feels urgent and nothing feels meaningful.
Psychologically, that's the state in which real work gets done. There's something else worth paying attention to here.
Yerba Mate contains caffeine, yes, but it also contains compounds like theobromine and theophylline, which subtly shift how that stimulation is experienced.
The result isn't domination by impulse, it's cooperation with intention.
And that's a profound distinction. Health, at its core, is about alignment, your biological drives working in service of your values rather than against them. A beverage that helps you think clearly, regulate emotion, and sustain focus without aggression is doing something far more important than boosting energy.
This matters because clarity precedes responsibility. You can't aim yourself properly if your mind is either foggy or frantic. Sustained attention allows reflection, and reflection allows choice. Over time, those choices compound.
What looks like a small daily habit, a cup of Mate instead of another jolt of coffee, can quietly shift how you relate to work, to stress, and to yourself.
And that's the deeper point. Yerba Mate isn't about stimulation for its own sake.
It's about cultivating a mental state where discipline feels possible and meaning feels accessible.
When your mind is steady, you don't just react, you act. And that's where genuine health begins.
Once you move past the question of mental clarity, you're forced to confront a more uncomfortable truth. Most people don't fail at health because they lack information, they fail because their daily behaviors are misaligned with their biology.
Modern life makes it easy to overconsume empty calories while remaining undernourished, and that imbalance quietly erodes energy, mood, and self-control.
Yerba Mate is compelling because it challenges that pattern in a surprisingly efficient way. It offers genuine nutritional value while simultaneously shaping how the body manages energy and appetite.
Unlike many beverages that merely stimulate, Yerba Mate delivers a dense profile of bioactive compounds.
Polyphenol, antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals that support cellular health and reduce oxidative stress. But the more interesting effect shows up at the behavioral level. Mate appears to influence metabolic efficiency, encouraging the body to mobilize fat for energy and moderating appetite in a way that feels natural rather than forced. That matters, because sustainable health doesn't emerge from constant restraint, it emerges when the body and mind stop fighting each other. Consider how often people rely on willpower alone to manage eating and energy. That's a losing strategy.
Willpower is finite, and when it's exhausted, impulsive behavior fills the gap.
What Mate does, subtly but reliably, is lower the cognitive cost of discipline. By stabilizing energy levels and reducing unnecessary hunger signals, it creates the conditions in which better decisions become easier to make.
And that's the real shift.
Health stops being a moral battle and starts becoming a structural advantage. There's also a deeper principle at play here.
Humans are ritual-oriented creatures.
We don't simply follow rules, we build patterns.
Yerba Mate functions as a daily ritual that embeds nourishment into routine.
Instead of reaching for sugar or another empty stimulant, you're engaging in a practice that feeds the body while supporting metabolic balance.
Over time, that repetition reshapes identity.
You begin to see yourself as someone who takes care of their physiology not through extremes, but through consistency.
That consistency compounds. Small, biologically intelligent choices made daily have disproportionate long-term effects. Metabolism improves. Energy stabilizes.
The internal dialogue around food becomes quieter and more rational.
And when that happens, mental space opens up for more meaningful pursuits.
So the real value of Yerba Mate isn't that it burns fat or curbs appetite in isolation. It's that it transforms health from a constant struggle into a repeatable practice. And when health becomes habitual, progress stops depending on motivation and starts depending on who you choose to be, every single day. There's a tendency in modern health culture to reduce everything to inputs and outputs, calories, nutrients, biomarkers, as if human beings were merely complicated machines. But that perspective misses something fundamental. We are not only biological organisms, we are social and symbolic creatures. The patterns that shape our health are embedded in culture, ritual, and relationship. Yerba Mate is powerful precisely because it exists at that intersection, where physiology meets meaning. In many South American cultures, mate is not consumed in isolation or in haste.
It's shared. Passed hand to hand. Taken slowly.
And that alone should give us pause.
Longevity research consistently points to social connection, rhythm, and a sense of belonging as decisive factors in long-term health. Isolation, by contrast, accelerates both psychological and physical decline. When a practice like mate encourages presence and conversation, it does more than nourish the body, it stabilizes the psyche. There's also something profoundly regulating about ritual itself. Ritual introduces structure into chaos. It creates predictable moments in the day where speed is reduced and attention is restored. In a world that constantly demands reaction, that pause becomes restorative. Drinking mate is not about maximizing efficiency, it's about restoring balance. You're not chasing stimulation, you're participating in continuity. And psychologically, that's grounding. What's especially interesting is how these small rituals counteract the fragmentation of modern life. People eat alone, work alone, and unwind alone, often while distracted. Mate subtly pushes against that pattern. Even when consumed alone, it carries the symbolic weight of connection and tradition. It reminds you that health isn't something you optimize in isolation, it's something you sustain through rhythm, restraint, and shared meaning. This is where the philosophical dimension becomes unavoidable. Health is not merely about extending life, it's about making life worth extending. Practices that slow you down, reconnect you to others, and anchor you in tradition do more than reduce stress markers. They orient you toward a mode of being that is sustainable over decades, not just productive over weeks. So Yerba Mate isn't simply a drink. It's a corrective to the speed, isolation, and disposability of modern habits. It invites you to sit, to share, and to pay attention. And perhaps that's the most radical health intervention of all. To choose rituals that restore connection, because a life lived in balance lasts longer, and a life shared lasts deeper.